Hi, this is Howie Roseman. Welcome to the Philly Show.
Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zolecki. It's Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. How is everybody doing? You heard from our little intro, little change piece, little pulling the string on the guest.
Cambio.
Cambio. Yeah, I know that. Yes, that's like one of the 6 Spanish words I can speak and understand.
That and cerveza and a couple of those.
Yeah.
Donde está la biblioteca?
Estoy
Nice.
borracho.
Yes. Donde está el baño?
We can do it all. But we had Eagles general manager, Super Bowl champion Howie Roseman on the show. And let's start right there with the Parks first pitch. Parks first pitch is brought to us exclusively by our partners at Parks Casino, Pennsylvania's #1 casino. And what a Parks first pitch to have today with Howie Roseman. And it was a lot of fun talking to him. Ruben, you go way back with Howie. He got hired. He was with the Eagles. He's been with the Eagles forever, it feels like, but he was hired as Eagles GM January of 2010. You were wheeling dealing. You're a month off of Roy Halladay coming to the Phillies. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with him and how far you guys go back before we get to Howie.
I had an opportunity to spend some time with him and sort of pick his brain. His first time through as a GM, and we talked a little bit. Had a couple of drinks from time to time. Maybe had a dinner or two, but really fascinated. And that was during a time when a lot of the GMs at the time were trying to get together and talk about best practices and stuff like that. But I've always found him to be somebody who's super astute, very driven, and really fun to talk business. He's a fun guy, just in general. He and his family, great people, but just fun to talk business and to kick things around. And it's been a real joy to watch his overall development and what's happened to his career. He wins, he gets taken down. He has some levels of success. And then he bounces back with like new ideas and a lot of thoughts. And now he's probably the best GM in football. And it's just been a real joy to watch his development and how things have worked out for him.
It's kind of cool how there's like a little fraternity in town between all the GMs. You play golf a lot with Paul Holmgren, former Flyers GM, and Howie. You have a great relationship with him. It's funny. I was thinking, I remember a time when I was covering the Phillies, maybe when I first started, when the Eagles and Phillies, there was some tension there. They were sharing Veterans Stadium. The Phillies used to complain that the Eagles would leave the showers messy. And there was some friction over, getting the new place built and who was showing the vet a lack of respect and who was showing it some respect. And there was, like I said, some tension there, but not anymore. They're very close. The relationship between John Middleton and Jeffrey Lurie, the two owners, and there's a real healthy respect between the two organizations. When the Eagles have won, 2 Super Bowls in the last 7 years, the Phillies have been very enthusiastic in their congratulations of the Eagles with banners hanging from Citizens Bank Park, and so it's good to see them pulling for each other. I did, remember the parade in March. All the players down in Clearwater were watching it. Todd, remember that on the TV? Yeah. They were watching it.
Yeah, they talked about how cool it would be, and they see that, and they can't help but think of maybe that could be us, and how much fun would that be if that was us. They've talked about it a lot, but Howie had a lot of great things to say. I loved asking him about kind of how he got his start and how passionate he was about getting in the NFL from the time he was 7 to the time he was a senior in high school through college, and how he was just super persistent in that pursuit. That was pretty cool to see. So, a lot of really cool things you're going to hear in these next 20 or so minutes or so.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, that was First Pitch, presented exclusively by our partners at Parks Casino, Pennsylvania's #1 casino. ParksCasino.com is the website. You must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Phillies fans, whether you're sliding into home or just chasing your kids around the yard, staying mobile matters. That's why we trust Rothman Orthopedics. From sports injuries to joint replacements, they keep you moving with top specialists who care for the best team and the best fans in baseball. Rothman's got your back, because at Rothman Orthopedics, your mobility is their mission. Visit RothmanOrtho.com to schedule today. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, just scan the QR code on your screen.
Hey, we love ripping slab packs on Arena Club. I just ripped one in a Ruby pack. Those are fancy schmancy, Kip. And I pulled a Matt Shaw 2023 Bowman Draft Aqua Lunar Crater Refractor card. And guess what? Guess what? I got a little offer. You get the instant offer right away. Okay. So they're offering me $121 to sell it back, and then I can get a new slab pack. What do I do?
I want to see this thing. Hold on. Look at that. That's a beautiful card. You know what? I think that's a safe bet. I think it's going to make you a little bit of money. I think the more big league time he gets, I'd almost take the deal, though. I'm in it for the chase. I like opening more packs. I think that 121 can buy you a couple more slabs to open, and I think you keep chasing until you get something you really like. But that's the best part about it for me.
That's right. You can sell it back, $121, and then open up another slab pack. Use the code FOUL to receive 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/foul.
Howie, thanks so much for joining the show. We're super happy to have you. We're the three of us are baseball people, and I was thinking, like, in January we start getting geared up for spring training. For you, when do you start getting the itch of getting Eagles players back at the facility, wanting them to see pads? Obviously, you're coming off the Super Bowl, but when did that itch start creeping for you?
Sometime in July, it gets to the point where I'll wake up and I'll start evaluating the things going on in my house and trying to oversee some of the things my wife and my kids are doing, and she'll subtly say to me, when does work start for you? When do you go back to work? And that's when I know it's time to go. And by the time we start here, you can't wait to get back. And it's a fun time of year because you get to be around your guys, evaluate your players, and you can't lose any games.
Exactly right.
That's right.
How far, you became GM in January of 2010, right at the height of Ruben's run as Phillies GM. Can you talk about your relationship? Did you guys ever grab dinner, bounce ideas off each other?
Drinks. We have drinks, hang out. But you know what the best part is that, and obviously I had a sabbatical year. That was imposed on me. But, at one point early in my tenure, Ruben and I were on a podium together. I don't know if you're going to remember this. I think we were actually at the stadium.
Yep.
And, they said, "What's your biggest surprise?" And I said, after watching the response to Ruben, after all the success he had, I realized that just winning in Philadelphia once, I always had this vision, you win a world championship here, you're God for life. And clearly, that's not going to happen. And, I was kind of joking, and then we won in 2017. And, I think there was a moment in 2020 where my boys were watching a Phillies game. I know there was a moment in 2020 when boys were watching a Phillies game, and there was a chant, "Fire Howie," in the stands. And, it was I don't know. We made the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, won a world championship. You thought that was pretty good. And then you remembered I remembered my moment on that podium with Rube, where it's, in this city, which I appreciate, I really do. It's nothing that you've done in the past guarantees your success or your standing in the future. And that's okay. That's okay.
And the cool thing about that, Howie, is that, when you had sort of that hiatus, you ended up doing some things yourself personally to become the GM, probably the best GM in the history of the Eagles, but also in the sport. And, one of the things that I really am really impressed by is the fact that you continue to work to be that guy. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody that in particular influenced some of those changes, some of the things that you did change as far as, doing your job is concerned?
Yeah, this, you get these jobs, you always aspire for these jobs, and then you get in the seat and you really don't know what it takes, and that's okay. You don't know what it takes to be a GM or a head coach until you're really doing it. And there's very little patience for the mistakes that you're going to inevitably make. And the more you do it, when you're young, you're kind of experience is overrated. And as you get older, you're man, experience is the most important thing you can get. And the only way you can do really well is have adversity and learn from your mistakes. And so being able to take that year and sit down, I mean, you and I sat down together during that year, certainly doing it with all these current former GMs, leaders of businesses, and understanding like nothing is a straight line. You know, you have to go through the ups and downs to be great in anything you do. And it really inspired me. You know, I didn't know that I'd get the chance, certainly didn't know that I'd get the chance again in Philly, but it really inspired me to have another opportunity and to really do it the way with the vision that I had. And, you know, we got to constantly evolve in this profession. Like, you can't just say, this is how I'm going to be, and this is it, and stay stagnant, because you'll get your ass kicked. And so I think, well, you know, for me, it's constant. Like, I think I'm learning something new every day, you know? And from my perspective, that's what makes this so exciting, is like, I don't even feel like I've reached my ceiling, because I still have so much to learn and gain. You know, I'll take something from this conversation that will make me a little better, you know? So from my perspective, when you're younger, you're kind of like, man, I'm so good. You know, I'm ready for this. And you kind of got this cockiness, this arrogance, and you realize as you get older, like, you're never going to be perfect. Like, you're always constantly learning and developing if you really want to have a chance to be great.
Howie, I'm kind of familiar with your story. You knew at a very young age you wanted to be a football executive, a GM, correct?
I did. Yeah,
And
I did.
What kind of kid?
You guys, I couldn't play in the NFL, so I realized that pretty early too. My first scouting report was probably on myself. You know, like I really felt like for a long time I was like, man, I can throw, I can be a quarterback in the NFL. And then, like, you know, I started seeing like the quarterbacks. They were 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". I looked around, my family tallest guy was 6 feet. I go, this wasn't going to happen for me. So I pivoted quickly.
Was there an executive, a GM type that kind of kindled your dream, or was there a team that ignited your fire for that passion?
Well, ironically, and you know, I'm probably sacrilegious for saying this, but one of the teams that actually really rekindled my desire, or really like that I look to, and I still think of this team, was the '86 Mets. You know, the personality of that team, growing up or in and around New York, and watching that team, and the personality of that team, and how that team was put together with veterans who were kind of inspired to win, and young players who had come through the system and were winning. And then that was '86. And in '86, the Jets had an unbelievable team too. They started 10-1, like they were on fire. They ended up losing in a playoff game in double overtime in Cleveland. Mark Gastineau on a fourth down got a roughing the passer on Bernie Kosar. The drive continued. They lost that game, and that team too, like that team, the offensive firepower on that team, O-line, receivers, running back. And so in New York in '86, there were those two teams, and I was 11 years old. And those teams, I still, as you can tell, I still remember those teams and how they were made up. And the GM of the Mets in '86 was Frank Cashin. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
And the '86 Jets was Dick Steinberg. And so those teams, like those GMs, how they were made, they really affected me.
I hope this doesn't sully your view of Frank Cashin, but he began his career as a sports writer.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you know, one of my favorite GMs in NFL history, Ernie Accorsi. Yep. You know, like he was a PR guy. So, you know, it's from my perspective, you know, at the end of the day, if you can evaluate, if you can do it, it doesn't matter where you came from. It's an instinct. It's just like anything in life. If you have the instincts to do something, if you work hard at it, you combine instincts and hard work and persistence, you got a chance.
Howie, I read this story, and please tell me if it's truth or if it's legend, that you were flying to Florida to visit your grandparents as a kid, and you had a New York Yankees cap on, and you got seated somehow next to Jack Elway, who was the San Jose State head football coach at the time. And John was obviously drafted by the Yankees, and somehow, I guess maybe you were 7, and you actually talked with Jack throughout the entire flight about football. And at the end of it, he gave his business card to your mom and said, please call when he graduates from high school. Is this true?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, because I had no connection to the NFL. And I even at that age, you know, it really started when I was 6 years old, and the Jets played the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game, the A.J. Dewey game. They lost 14-0 in the mud in the old Orange Bowl. A.J. Dewey had 2 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, and I was hooked. And I just like the draft, even at that age. And so to be able to sit down next to him, and I was reading a draft magazine, and to have this guy who had, he was football royalty, to actually believe in me. And, belief is such a huge deal, for our players, for our staff, having people believe in them. Everyone needs belief. Everyone needs people who believe in them. I see it so often, our players, when these talented guys, when you just tell them, like, I believe in you, I know you can do it, I've seen it, I know you got this. And for me, that was just instrumental. And John Elway became the GM of the Broncos, and the first time I met him, I told him that story, and his dad was obviously a special person to him, but that one meeting had a huge impact on me.
So what's cool about that?
Did you ever reach out to him? Did you ever?
Oh yeah.
You did. You called him after high school.
So interestingly, Jack Elway was the head coach at Stanford all the years when I was there at Stanford. So 84 to 89, I think was his tenure. But I was there, through 87, and had an opportunity to see his work, and obviously was loving watching John Elway's career continue to develop.
Player.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
More from Howie Roseman in a second.
Let's talk about the one and only betting app that I would recommend to use for betting on sports, and that is the BetParks app. You can bet individual player performances like strikeouts, homers, or RBIs. And to stay with the football theme, I mean, you can go on there and go all types of sports and talk about them, or at least play them. And you can check out some really fun games as well. We've talked about this before. Huff and more puff. I mean, there's a ton of games. Deal or no deal. I mean, I love these. Billionaires Bank. There's a ton of games that I've played. They're really fun. It's like TikTok, but it's for people who like sports betting and not dance tracks. And also, they have something called the Bet Wire right on the app. It's an all-new sports betting app. It's a live feed right inside the app, and it gives you a bunch of hot takes, game predictions, sports betting content from creators all across the country. New casino users can get up to $1,000 cash back if you're down in your first 24 hours. See betparks.com for details. You got to be 21 in Pennsylvania, Jersey, Michigan, and or Maryland. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Then the other thing I loved reading about how your interest as a kid was, even I guess from senior high school through college, you like sent letters to every NFL team, right, looking for jobs, and the persistence in that. And this is the part that amazed me the most, is that you actually sent thank you notes to the rejection letters. Is that true as well? So you get a rejection letter and you'd send thank you for responding to me. Is that?
Dating was easy for me because I didn't care. I was getting rejected all the time anyway. It was like, so if someone else said no, it was like no problem. I got so used to the word no that it's like it's really helped me so much in life. I kind of joke about it, but I got 4 kids, 3 sons and a daughter, and I tell them all the time, like, once you get immune to hearing no and being rejected, it's powerful. Being able to do that and understanding it, in your game, if you're successful 3 out of 10 times, you're some of the best players in the league, And so if you kind of take that into life and you take that into now I can't be 3 for 10 in the draft. I can't be 3 for 10 in free agency. So I'm not saying that. Right. Any of our fans listening, like, we got to be way better than that. And I'm trying, but I think the point is, like, it's a lesson in life. Like, that is part of the process you got to do to be great. Is you got to be okay with understanding you're going to be rejected. Things aren't going to always go the right way. Teams aren't going to sometimes say yes to the trade offers. Obviously a lot of people said no to me before I got in the door. And so, for me, it got to the point where it was much harder to connect, when I was coming up than it is now. Now it's like, everyone, they just come up. They think it's so easy to connect with you and just like, give me a job. Yeah, no, I'm not giving you a job. That's not how it works.
Howie, I was wondering, is there a quality of a player, like when we used to do our, organization meetings, is there a quality of a player that stands out to you? Like for me, it was about someone who could competition, so a competitor. Is there something that you use per position? Is there one quality that you look for employees and for your members on the field?
Well, I think the first part, obviously, there's position specific stuff you're looking for. So what I'm looking for from at the quarterback position is going to be different when I'm looking for in a defensive lineman. So that stuff, those traits are going to be different. But we are always looking for someone who's overcome adversity at some level, because we know how tough it is to play in the NFL. We know how tough it is to play in this city. So give me an example of some sort of adversity you've overcome, how you overcame it. Who are the people in your life who did that? Obviously you were looking for competitors, no doubt about it. And we're able to see that. You can see a lot of the competition on tape. But for me, what you can't see on tape is, give me a moment in your life that something happened to you that wasn't great. Everyone has a moment that bad stuff happened. And how did you react? And you get that. And that's why our scouts are so important. When they're able to dig into the background and you go through our team, I'll give you a little secret that not many people know. When they asked me to talk before the second parade the night before, all of a sudden it hit me, and it was basically every single guy on our roster has basically a Philly story, has a story of adversity that they've overcome. I mean, we go through it. Jalen Hurts, obviously, what happened in Alabama, then going to Oklahoma. Lane Johnson was a JUCO quarterback. Goes and he's the third offensive lineman taken, like AJ Brown, the Titans passed on paying him. I mean, you could go through it. Jordan Mailata, you could go through our whole team and go through that, and then I got hit in the head and, I changed my whole story. But I think from my perspective, that's what I think that is so impressive about our team, about the people off the field. I mean, look at our head coach, look at how he was judged originally, but people don't realize he had a traumatic injury in college where they told him he was never going to play again. I think about it and I look for the people. I say the toughest person I know is my wife and the things she's overcome and how she's handled things. And so, yeah, we're attracted to people who have had adversity, dealt with adversity, and come out the other side with positive energy, and that you want to be around them. They're not kind of feeling sorry for themselves, but they kind of got this positive chip on their shoulder, like, hey, I had this event, but it makes me even more thankful about the opportunity that I have.
So you're talking about character, and that's so important in sports, Howie. Down in spring training this year, you guys were having your parade back in Philly, and I'll tell you, it was on the TV in the clubhouse. Players were watching it. They were inspired by it. Brandon Graham brings the trophy out on opening day. This team was legitimately inspired by the Eagles championship. And there is a connection between the two teams. John Middleton's a close friend to you guys. He's in your box all the time. Do you follow the Phillies?
Oh yeah. What do you think of them? Well, I'd say a couple of things. You mentioned John and Jeffrey's relationship. I mean, I have watched both our Super Bowls. John sat in front of me. I think that he's surprised at what a psychopath I am during the games. But he's pretty passionate too now. Like I gotta be honest, his passion and his energy is tremendous. And then you talk about Dave Dombrowski. I mean, to me, this is a Hall of Fame executive. This is a guy that I've always followed. I always have tremendous respect for and appreciation for him and what he's done time and time again. And constantly another guy who's like constantly going somewhere and showing how great he is. And obviously my relationship with Ruben. So yeah, every night when I get home, you put on the TV for a minute and my TV immediately goes to the Phillies games. My kids are huge Phillies fans. They play baseball. So I think they're, following them and the success that they've had and showing it year after year, being able to do that. And certainly when I was starting here, also the success they had. I think there's a lot of parallels and I count myself as a huge Phillies fan.
Back when, you talked earlier at the beginning how you are always kind of looking to improve and find ways to improve. So I'm wondering, when you see Dave Dombrowski, I don't know how often you actually cross paths with him, but do you guys pick each other's brains? I'm thinking even further back, like Moneyball comes out in 2003 and it's different sport, obviously. Do you pick up that book and page through it and say, did you read that book? I mean, anything like that?
Of course. And for me, like there's so much you can learn from executives in different sports in the way they're approaching things. And, a lot of the things that we've done since I came back in 2016, we're taking a page out of what was going on in baseball and basketball. I think, one of the things that I did, like moving money, that wasn't really done in the NFL at that time. And we started doing in 2016, where we were basically trading contracts to gain money so that we could kind of resurface that money and redistribute it other places. And, you know, from me, the way that baseball develops their players is a great lesson for us. Football player development is still coming of age, and it's something we take really seriously here in Philadelphia. And every time the trade deadline, free agency, you know, I am looking through all these moves. I'm trying to learn about these players and understand the whys, put myself in those positions, you know. So it's always things that you can learn from and to try to get better at what you're doing. And, you know, I got someone across the street who's unbelievable at what he does. And so, yeah, we text back and forth. We see each other occasionally, but obviously he's got a busy schedule, a lot more games than we got.
Howie, really appreciate your time. Just wanted to ask you, you know, you're a champion. We know how crazy this community is about the Eagles. Where's the coolest place maybe you ever heard an Eagles chant, or maybe somebody ever said, "Hey, Howie, you know, way to go. We love you."
It's funny you say that. We were in Rome 2 years ago, and we went to a restaurant, and our hotel was like a 25-minute walk. And so, you know, my youngest son, my daughter, my wife, my daughter, wife are all dressed up. They're like, "We're not walking," you know. And I'm like, "Man, we just had a big dinner. I'm gonna walk back." And my two oldest sons were like, "Dad, we'll walk with you." And we're walking across like a piazza, and it's like 9:30 at night. And literally, I'm like, I'm wearing button-down jeans, and it's kind of dark. And I hear, "Howie, go Birds!" And I'm like, "Hell is going on here? Crazy is going on." And then we were on a safari last year, and South. I'm not even kidding. We're in a safari last year in South Africa, and like, you know, I don't know if anyone's been on a safari. Everyone needs to go on a safari. It's unbelievable. But we're in these Jeeps, and we're like passing a Jeep, and I hear this Jeep go Birds, and it's like, man, Philly fans, they're unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm gonna tell you what. I can't wait to see the Phillies finish this off. I'm going to be there as we go down the stretch. I couldn't be more excited for all you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Howie. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your time, man. You're the man. Congratulations on your success.
Congratulations. Thanks for memories.
The Philly Show is brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Subscribe to the Philly Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.